Have you ever looked at your life and wondered, God, where are you in all this? The setbacks, the unanswered prayers, the waiting that feels endless. It can shake even the strongest faith. But what if I told you that what feels like silence is actually divine strategy? That behind the delays, the detours, and even the disappointments, God is orchestrating something far greater than you can see. In this message, we're going to uncover a powerful truth. God is not absent. He's active. You are part of a divine story, written by the hands of a loving and all-knowing author. And even if the chapter you're in feels dark, the story isn't over. So don't scroll away. Don't lose heart. Stay with me to the end, because what you're about to hear might just be the reminder your soul has been waiting for. Let's step into a deeper trust, a bolder faith, and a renewed hope that God is orchestrating. So trust the process and don't lose faith. God's hand is not always obvious, but He is never absent. What we perceive as disorder, delays, or detours are often the very moments where His divine purpose is most at work. This truth is unsettling to the natural mind, which craves control and clarity. But to the heart trained by Scripture and softened by trust, it becomes a source of deep, sustaining hope. The same God who parted seas, calmed storms, and raised the dead has not ceased to orchestrate the events of our lives, even when heaven seems silent and prayers echo in the dark. We often imagine that divine involvement must feel dramatic, like thunder from Sinai or fire from heaven. But God moves just as powerfully in the quiet, in the ordinary, and in what seems to us like delay. The orchestra of heaven does not miss a single note, even when we cannot hear the music. His providence is not passive, it is active, weaving every circumstance into a tapestry whose beauty is often only visible in hindsight. The mundane days, the heartbreaks, the closed doors, all of these are being used in a design far beyond our understanding. The lives of the saints, both ancient and modern, bear witness to this. Joseph, falsely imprisoned, seemed forgotten, yet God was positioning him for Pharaoh's court. Ruth, gleaning in a foreign field, appeared destitute, but God was writing a lineage that would lead to the Messiah. Even Christ himself, hanging between two thieves, looked like a defeated man, but that hill was the site of the greatest victory in history. At every stage, what looked like absence was actually orchestration. And so we must learn to look again, not with the eyes of flesh, but with eyes of faith. When your plans unravel, God may be untangling you from lesser things. When you lose what you thought you needed, He may be clearing the path for something eternal. His silence does not signal apathy. It often means He is working in depths we cannot yet access. Faith is not merely believing in God's existence, it is trusting in His unseen hand when nothing seems to make sense. The orchestration continues. The composer has not stopped writing. Life is not a series of accidents, strung together by chance or fate. It is a grand narrative, authored by a sovereign and loving God. Each moment, each encounter, and each season, whether marked by joy or sorrow, is a line in a script far greater than we can comprehend. We are not the center of the story, but we are beloved characters within it, chosen and called according to a purpose that stretches beyond time and touches eternity. The world will tell you that you are a product of randomness, that history is blind, and that meaning must be manufactured. But Scripture tells another story, one where God speaks the universe into existence, shapes nations, appoints kings, and numbers even the hairs on your head. When we lose sight of the bigger picture, we become overwhelmed by the page we are on. A single chapter of pain or uncertainty begins to feel like the entire book. But the author knows what he is doing. The story he writes is not shallow. It is deep and layered, full of both tension and resolution, suffering and redemption. Even our waiting seasons are not wasted. They are paragraphs of preparation, where God shapes us for what lies ahead. In his narrative, no tear is without purpose, and no detour is without direction. Consider how the great stories of Scripture unfold. Abraham waited decades for the promised child. David was anointed king but fled as a fugitive. Esther risked her life to save her people, positioned in the palace for such a time as this. These were not coincidences. They were divine appointments in a storyline designed by God. And now, just like them, we are part of the ongoing work of redemption, living letters being written by the Spirit, read by the world around us. We do not have the luxury of seeing the whole manuscript, but we do have the assurance that the one writing it is faithful and good. His wisdom is not limited to what we can understand. While we may question the direction of the plot, we must never doubt the integrity of the author. Even when our story feels small, it is intertwined with God's eternal purpose, contributing to a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Faith is not the reward for understanding. It is the courage to trust when understanding fails. We are creatures who crave answers, who feel safer when we can see the path laid out before us. Yet God rarely offers the full picture. He gives us just enough light for the next step, not the entire map. This is not cruelty, it is divine mercy. For if we saw everything, we might be tempted to rely on our own strength, to manipulate outcomes, or even to flee from what we are not yet ready. Faith requires that we walk in step with the unseen, holding fast to the one who knows all things, even when our eyes cannot see beyond the immediate. Scripture never promised that faith would always feel reassuring. In fact, some of the greatest acts of faith were forged in the fires of confusion and darkness. Noah built an ark having never seen rain. Abraham left his homeland not knowing where he was going. Mary accepted the call to bear the Messiah, though it shattered every expectation of a normal life. These men and women did not move because they had clarity. They moved because they trusted the voice of the one who called them. Faith does not mean certainty in the outcome. It means confidence in the one who holds the outcome. There will be moments when God seems distant, when prayers go unanswered and doors stay shut. In those moments, doubt will whisper lies, that God has forgotten you, that he is not who he claimed to be, that you must take matters into your own hands. But faith is the refusal to listen to that voice. It is the posture of the heart that says, even if I cannot see the way, I will walk with you. Even if I do not understand the why, I will stay with you. Faith clings when feelings fail. It anchors the soul in the truth that God's character does not change, even when circumstances do. You are not lost in a maze without meaning. You are being led gently and wisely by a shepherd who knows the terrain better than you know your own heart. What feels like delay is often divine timing. What feels like silence is often God drawing you closer, deepening your dependence, teaching you to hear him in ways that do not rely on sight or signs. Suffering and delays are not the absence of God's care. They are often the precise instruments of his craftsmanship. We long for quick answers, instant solutions and immediate breakthroughs, but God is not in the business of shallow fixes. He is committed to forming Christ within us, and that kind of work takes time, pressure, and often pain. The very seasons we wish away, the waiting rooms of life, the heartbreaks, the wilderness wanderings, are where God is most at work in shaping who we are. He does not waste pain. He does not overlook struggle. Every difficulty we endure is a thread in the fabric of his eternal design. Gold is not purified in cool air, it is refined in fire. Clay does not find its final form until it has been shaped, pressed and placed in the heat of the kiln. Likewise, our souls are not perfected by ease, but through trials that test and deepen our faith. God is not content with surface-level faith that only praises him when things are easy. He desires a faith that endures, that holds firm when there is no visible reward, that loves him not only for his blessings, but for his very being. And to cultivate such faith, he sometimes leads us into seasons where all we can do is trust. Look through the pages of Scripture, and you will see a pattern. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he ever led Israel out of Egypt. Joseph sat in a prison for years before stepping into Pharaoh's court. Even Jesus waited in obscurity for 30 years before beginning his public ministry. None of these delays were mistakes. They were divine preparation. God was forming strength, humility, and wisdom in silence so that his servants could carry the weight of their calling when the time came. If he did this with them, will he not also do it with us? In the waiting, God is working. In the suffering, he is sculpting. He is far more concerned with your eternal character than your temporary comfort. Though it may feel as though he is distant, he is in fact closer than ever, attending to every detail, every tear, every prayer. And when the appointed time comes, the fruit of what he has been forming will break forth, not just for your benefit, but for his glory. The enemy thrives in the silence between promise and fulfillment. It is in that fragile space, when prayers seem unanswered and doors remain closed, that doubt begins to whisper its lies. God has forgotten you. Nothing is happening. You must fix this yourself. These are the tactics of the adversary, not to distract and disarm us with despair. Doubt is subtle. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply asks, "Did God really say?" The same question the serpent asked Eve still slithers into our hearts today, especially when God's timing doesn't align with our expectations. But God is not idle. His delays are not denials. They are spaces of sacred preparation. Patience is not weakness. It is spiritual strength forged by waiting on God rather than rushing ahead. In this way, God is not just building outcomes, he is building us. The waiting season is not a passive stretch of meaningless time. It is active ground where faith is stretched, tested and strengthened. The enemy would have you believe that waiting means nothing is happening. God, however, sees it as one of his most productive tools. He is never in a hurry because he is never late. Throughout Scripture we see this contrast between the enemy's schemes and God's timing. When Saul could not wait for Samuel, he acted in fear and lost the kingdom. When the Israelites grew impatient with Moses, they fashioned a golden calf and forfeited their holiness. But when Daniel waited, their holiness. But when Daniel waited, the child was born. When Jesus waited until the 4th day, Lazarus rose from the tomb. Trusting God means choosing to believe that even when nothing seems to move on the surface, God is orchestrating everything beneath it. The enemy will always point to what you lack, to what has not yet come, hoping to make you believe that God's silence equals his absence. But God is still speaking, just not always in the ways we expect. He is speaking through endurance, through peace that passes understanding, through small mercies that sustain us one day at a time. Faith does not grow in noise, it grows in stillness. Patience is not a passive posture, it is a weapon against the enemy's lies. In every moment you choose to trust rather than panic, to wait rather than rush. You declare that God is still in control and His timing is still perfect. Hope that is rooted only in immediate results will always be fragile. It will bend under pressure, break under disappointment, and vanish when outcomes fall short of expectations. But hope that is anchored in eternity is unshakable. It does not depend on the speed of answered prayers or the comfort of current circumstances. It draws its strength from the unchanging character of God and the eternal promises that surpass this present world. The Christian life was never promised to be free of trials, but it was promised to be full of purpose. When we fix our eyes only on what we can see, we risk losing heart. But when we lift our gaze to what is unseen, we find a deeper courage that endures. This life, as precious as it is not the full story. It is the beginning, the opening act, the prelude to a glory far greater than we can yet imagine. God's promises are not bound by the ticking clock or the turning pages of the calendar. Some of the most profound fulfillments come not in the moment we expect, but in the season we are prepared to receive them. There are prayers that will be answered long after we have prayed them. Victories that will unfold in our children's lifetimes, and rewards we will not see until we stand before Christ. This is not a delay. It is divine design. We are not merely living for now. We are living toward forever. Jesus himself lived with eternity in mind. He endured the cross, scorning its shame, for the joy set before him. That joy was not found in escaping pain, but in redeeming it. In the same way, we must endure our trials not by minimizing them, but by placing them in their proper perspective. Every loss, every unanswered question, every difficult season finds its place when held up against the light of eternity. There is no suffering too deep, no delay too long that God cannot redeem for His glory and our good. We do not anchor our hope in the shifting sands of outcomes. We anchor it in the rock, who is Christ. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His word is sure, His promises are true, and His return is certain. While the process may test us, the destination is secure, and that is a hope that holds. Brothers and sisters, through every silence, setback, and storm, we must remember this unshakable truth. God is orchestrating. His hand is never idle, His plan never delayed, and His purpose never defeated. You may not see the full picture now, you may only see the broken fragments, but the same God who shaped galaxies from nothing and brought life from an empty tomb is shaping your story with care, intention, and glory in mind. Your suffering is not wasted. Your waiting is not in vain. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. Trust the process, because the composer is still writing. Do not lose faith, because the one who called you is faithful, and He will finish what He began. Thank you for allowing me to share this word with you today. It is an honor to walk alongside fellow believers who are holding fast to faith in the middle of the unknown. May the truth of God's orchestration give you peace in the waiting, strength in the struggle, and unwavering hope for what lies ahead. Keep trusting. Keep walking. He's not finished yet. God bless you.